Hello, hello, hello. How's everybody doing today? Another beautiful day that the Lord has made. Another beautiful afternoon on a Sunday. I, man, it's kind of a weird one today because after the show this morning, we had a long one, and I had fun. This morning's show was kind of fun. I didn't even notice the time going by, right? And but what's weird is, hey, what's up, Cold Steel, man? What's going on, Alex? Um, what's weird is that I don't remember today at all. Like just off and on sleeping, I guess, catching up. And it feels good to get some rest, man. It does. And but what's crazy is that it goes from like the morning boom to the afternoon. And you're like, what? Like I remember dropping my phone a couple times, right? But like other than that, I have no memory of the day, right? Couple of text messages, but not really that much. But who knows, man? Maybe I'm morphing into a normal human being. Who knows, right? One of these days I'll get the hang of it, right? And so I'm happy to see you guys. And I guess usually, like, I don't know, like I would have woken up a couple times with like my brother asking me about like the football or something like that. But we must have lost today or something. I don't know. We must have lost because I didn't hear nothing from him. It must have been embarrassing. I'm almost afraid to look, But none of that's really made a difference to me in a long time, right? Football or movies or TV. Not that I don't enjoy when other people enjoy it, I want people to be happy. I just know what it is now, right? It's just it's kind of sick, man, when you think about it. It's just a distraction, right? Just a just a distraction. What's going on, Cold Springs Queen? I'm gonna have you on in 1 second. Not quite yet. I'm just waiting for people to show up. Yeah, Shannon's gonna be on today, Alex. We're doing part two of I forget, Hope. But we were talking about so many other different kind of things that I think that it would be good to talk about that too. In fact, go ahead and click the link and come on the show. I mean, I feel so good right now. Like I'm goofy and I don't want to mess up the show, right? Like I'm afraid of that just because of how happy I am because I feel really happy. But like I also got to be responsible too. Like I can't let anything crazy go down. And so probably someone will think that I'm high or something like that, but I don't even smoke weed, even though that it's legal and I could do it if I want. It's just right down the street. You can buy it. Let me see here. Okay. I gotta click the button. Okay, Shannon. Hello, Shannon. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hi, Steven. I'm good.
I feel so happy today because I got so much rest, but I'm afraid that I'm gonna do something goofy, you know?
That's okay. Goofy, you can be goofy. We love you that way.
Yeah. So how was your day today? Everything was good, or?
Everything was relaxing. Husband was home with me, and we had chickens out and got a couple errands done, and just tried to keep it low key on purpose because we can get busy really quick and get
Yeah,
stressed out, and I get stressed out easy. So trying not to be that way. It's a day off. We got to try to make it a day off.
that's right. That's right. And see, I used to always do that, like pile things on, or at the last minute, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have somebody over or something like that. I mean, unnecessarily putting stress on my own self, you know?
Yeah, it just adds to your anxiety. And it's funny because it actually becomes a habit. You get in a habit of being busy, that once it's time to relax, you sometimes some people don't know what to do with themselves. I don't know what to do with myself. Sometimes I get antsy and I have to remember that this is the time to sit down and just relax and not do stuff on purpose, but my mind keeps thinking.
Oh, I feel like I lost you. Oh, are you still there? Are you still there?
See, I can you hear me?
Yep. Now I can.
Okay. It was funny because I just got done telling my husband that if I don't watch this phone and keep it alive, it'll disconnect on me, and that's the first thing I
Oh, that's
did.
right. That's right, because it closes automatically on you.
That's
Yeah.
okay. I was busy flipping through a book, and I was telling you about how busyness can be an addiction. It,
Yes,
it
absolutely.
it's hard to break that habit, but you've got to force yourself to relax sometimes.
Well, hey, this is gonna sound goofy, right? Like, and I don't want this to come out the wrong way, but when I was getting trolled pretty heavily, right? I mean, the whole time I didn't like it, of course, right? But then when it did go away, right? It was
Yeah,
weird. I did kind of like, why did I miss it? Like I was like, okay, wait a minute, it's kind of gone. What am I gonna do today? Like, what's my?
yeah,
It was weird. It was weird. I didn't know what to do with myself, And
yeah.
I think
You
we
get
can be
you get in the habit of it.
I think we could get addicted to things that might not even be good or desirable, right? Like we get in a rut of how we're used to life being, and maybe that's like kind of how people now, like that are out there zombies right now, right? Maybe that's how they ended up that way, right? Like
Yep.
we all have that ability to end up like that. It's just some of us, for some reason, is it that their stuff doesn't work on us as much, or were we out of it, or I'm still
I
confused
think.
as to why. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No,
You
no,
said
no.
you're still confused as to why what?
That's it. That was my question.
Oh, well, I kind of think it goes hand in hand with people that are aware with what's going on around them and people who
Yeah.
aren't. So you have those people who are not aware, they have full trust in the system and the media and everything that's being fed to them. So everything seems hunky dory. They don't feel anything's wrong. They don't feel like they should be cautious about their time or anything. So they just go with the flow. And then the next thing you know, they're staring at a black mirror for 24 hours a day. But there's people like
Yeah.
us who are kind of like, okay, there is a dedicated time away from the screen, away from work, for God, for family. We have
That's right.
priorities and responsibilities, and it's different for us because it forces us to look up from the screen once in a while, which is actually healthy for us. And I'll be honest, that I can't stand this smartphone. If the first chance I get back to a flip phone and eventually no cell phone at all, I'm gonna take it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the only reason why I'm like thinking that I'll always have one now is just because, how convenient it is to have it. Like I'm connected to everything in one
Yep,
device. But like
yep,
really, really, if I never started, this whole smartphone thing, I wouldn't be missing anything. That's for sure. And
yes,
it's crazy is that like I start thinking that maybe just not like because I know since I was a kid, right? Naturally inside of like I've always been kind of contrary. Like I've always been kind of a contrarian, right? Like I'm a kind of against the grain kind of person, right? Like if everyone's going left, I want to go right. And
right.
I've always been kind of like that, right? Yeah, I wonder if that's part of it. Like I'm always looking for a conspiracy or always looking for to a way to distrust the official story. And I've been like that even when I was believing mainstream conspiracies like Kennedy's assassination, studying all the angles of the bullet, right? I mean,
Yeah,
now it's embarrassing, right? But like back then, I thought I was really studying this stuff, right? Because there's something inside of you that searches that that something isn't right. But does God give us that, like, fire in us to do that,
The
or
rebellious spirit, yes.
yeah,
I think that God does put that in some of us more so than others. And it's funny because I remember I want to say it's around about when my son was born. You know, people were talking about the different kinds of children and different kinds of child rearing, and oh, if you have a stubborn child, it's like either a really bad thing or it becomes a really good thing, depending on how you're able to hone that. It's a talent. It's a oh, not a talent. What's a good word for this, Stephen? It's a trait that someone's born with that can be either
yeah,
become their downfall or their strength.
it could be a
And
character flaw or a strength, right?
yeah, and you can either end up developing a child that grows up to be, you know, a dictator that just raises hell throughout this world, or a courageous leader that saves thousands of people. Which is it going to be? But they have that strong personality. You know,
Yeah.
you've got to got to help mold that personality in a positive direction, or else they will
Well,
end up the problem child.
well, I definitely see like there's definitely benefit, especially now in having like a strong-willed child, right? A kid that could say no to adults and to into authority. Like it could get you in a lot of trouble, but I would prefer to have a kid in trouble than victimized, right? And so
Yeah,
so you almost got to like encourage that type of strong will. And you're right, it does take a lot of nurturing, right? If
yeah.
if I notice that, like I don't know if my kids are probably medium willed kids, right? But like if they were strong willed, it would be something I would nurture, right? Like to try to grow it. You're right. Like
Try to
so,
just coax them in the right direction, and and if
yeah,
they have their stubbornness, just offer options that if they absolutely have to have their way, then give them a few options that they can have, and then they'll feel they have their way, and then you kind of, I don't know, I don't want to use the word manipulate because you don't want to manipulate your children, but
just training or
you want to
something.
give them the
Training.
correct options.
Yeah. I just call it training. You train your kids up to do the right thing, right? I mean, yeah, you are kind of manipulating them a little bit, right? But I mean, that's kind of partly your job, right? And you're right, it's not the best word to say, right? But I mean, look, if we're mincing words at this time, right? Like, I mean, we're in trouble. Like, we had lost the
Yeah,
world long before we were born, right? Like we don't even know if our history is true. We don't know if anything we learned in science is true. I mean, there we have people with PhDs, right, that believe little bugs make us sick, little invisible bugs, right?
yeah,
And there's still question of whether or not that's true or not, right? Like this is how insane it is, right? The like I always thought that there was always somebody out there smarter than me that has it all figured out. you know
yeah.
and when I grew up and I learned that nobody knows what the F they're doing, right? It was a very scary and, right? It's a very scary
Yeah.
and deflating, kind of feeling, You're like, what is going on, dude? If there are nuclear weapons, which who knows, right? There's definitely devastating weapons out there, right? But
Yeah.
these people are operating them,
And
like
it kind of scares you a little bit, like, this is it? This is the best we've got? And
yeah.
you're like, oh my God, we're doomed.
Well, I
we're,
remember
we're
reading
going to die.
you're right. No, but that's how it felt because I remember reading an article when I was 18 years old, right? That said
Uh-huh.
if you knew how every restaurant was run, you would never eat at a restaurant again.
Oh, that's
And
so true.
right, and it is true. This is the sad part, right? Is that little do we know, right, how businesses really operate. But it's not just kitchens, right? It's every single job that you've ever had runs differently than the customer thinks.
Yeah.
You
They
know,
only
and
see the show in the front area. They don't see what goes on behind the scenes.
right. Nobody sees reality.
No, and nobody wants to though, because there
They
are people
don't.
out there who have come out and said, you won't believe what they do with the appetizers, and then you eat it, and then people are like, ew, that's gross. And then what's the next thing they do on Valentine's Day? We're going to Olive Garden. It's like,
Right.
oh my
Yeah.
God, did you not hear what that person said? But
Yeah. It's
people still do it.
crazy. Absolutely. Or like let's like if we like looked on the back of a Twinkie or whatever and we listed all the ingredients, right? We had did a nice presentation and then we went through and said, okay, this is what each one of these things does to your body, right?
Yeah.
And none of it is good, right? None of it is nourishing or will help you in any kind.
Oh, I know.
Maybe the sugar will help you a little bit, right, at first, right? But if we did that and broke it all the way down, right, I still would want one, right? Like this
I
is this is the insane part of it, right? Like
I I can't believe I was just turning around and pointing at my husband because we had this conversation. I was talking to him about some of the stuff you guys talk about on the show, and you were talking to, was it Mike, about, or Chris? I can't remember. You were talking to somebody about sugar in our
yeah,
diet and
yeah,
how it's poison, but we're addicted to it.
we are.
And we, to us it's kind of like the solution is simple. Okay, fine, no more of these cheesecakes after dinner, no more chocolates after dinner. But once dinner's done, what's the first thing I'm doing? I'm standing in the kitchen looking around like, do we have any chocolate?
Right.
it's
Yeah.
it's so much harder to do than it is to just say, okay, I'm just going to cut out the sugar, and in the morning I want coffee with sugar in it because it's so good, but that's not good for you. What do? It's
Yeah,
difficult.
exactly. Well, you're right. Like they've even done like tests, right? Like they've even like had like where people were outside playing or outside working or whatever and really like depleted their body of like nutrients and all that. They've had
Right.
like a plate of nutritious vegetables, right? And then a plate of cookies right next to it, right?
Oh
Every
yeah.
single time people go for the cookies, man. Like there is no like we need what's in the vegetables, right? The fruits and vegetables, but we go for the
We
cookies.
want the cookies.
Yeah.
Isn't that
And
isn't that funny how that goes hand in hand with kind of like the things we talk about when God answers prayers? He gives us what we need, not always what we want.
yeah,
But and our natural instinct is just to go for what we want. We want, and that's all we go for, and we don't even look at the things we need or that are good for us.
exactly. Like God gives us this plate of nutritious vegetables on our prayer, right? And we get mad, you know?
Yeah.
Like why did you do this to me? Why am I suffering, you know?
This is not what I want. And then you just look right past the plate of vegetables that is probably what you need. But
Right. And that's how I try to explain the rules, right? Like yeah, sometimes it feels like not very inclusive when you look at the laws and rules and stuff like that, but it's what's good for us, right? Yeah, we want the
right.
cookies, right? But we got to do the vegetables. Like that's just the way it is, right? And we all have cookies in our life no matter what
Oh
it looks
God.
like, you know what I mean? Like we're not separate types of people, we're all people and we all want the cookies.
Yeah. Well,
You know what I
that's
mean?
interesting you say that because I just put together a grocery list for our Christmas dinner, and there's two sets of cookies on it. And I grabbed it anyway because it's Christmas. We make those terrible excuses, and
Yeah.
we get them anyway, and it's so bad, but we do it because it's
What can you do,
it's a temptation. It's temptation.
Yeah, and not only that, but like the world has us like so like programmed like YOLO, you only get one chance and you got to take your shot
Yes.
and bird in the hand and enjoy your best life now and and all this stuff, right? But everything in the Bible tells us to delay gratification, to be patient, to be long suffering, right? But like the world
Right.
is like, no, you're just a grain of sand. You poofed out of nowhere, man. You get one shot. The earth is just a place for people to do famous stuff, and then you're gone, right? Like
Yeah, you
that's
have your
it.
time to shine and you're gone.
Right. But in reality, that's like the smallest part of our existence is this part right here, you know,
Yeah,
and we're all just babies, right? And
we're
God
all
knows
learning.
that.
We are all learning.
I wonder what God thinks of us, right? Like, let's say, like, you know, we learn a few things here and there. We get to where we're like in our 50s or whatever, and you know, we think we're all smart, right? And we're all educated, right? And like, you know, smug with our own intelligence, right? And I wonder what God thinks about that. Like we're just babies, man. Like in the course of like eternity, like 50 years is nothing. It's like not less than nothing, you know. And I wonder how he views us when we act that way. If
You
it's
know,
funny to him, you know.
now that you pointed that out,
Mhm.
I would imagine he views us, okay, like I view my son when he comes out and tells me, you know, this girl's gonna come over, they're just gonna hang out, and I ask him, oh, is this your girlfriend? Oh, no, mom, we're just friends. Like, I have no idea what's going on there.
Right, right, right.
And you
Yeah,
know how, like, as a parent, you just kind of smile, like, oh, okay.
yeah.
You know, I
You're
wonder if
lying
God,
right to
like,
my face. Yeah.
I wonder if God looks at us that way, like, all right, you go ahead, keep on doing what you're doing, and just let me know when you mess up. You know?
Right, right. I mean, what do we think we're hiding from God? We're hiding nothing from him. Like
Exactly.
and in like these last like 4 or 5 years, right? Since like, you know, like really I always mention this time period because this is when like my faith in God, like I mean it multiplied by so much, right? And now I know that he's watching all the time. But before that, I used to think that like, oh, I'll just choose this and then I'll just get on the right track later, you know? And
Right.
now it's just so embarrassing to me, like what I thought I was getting away with and what I, you know, even little things. I think back and I want to replay them over again in my head, you know?
Oh my gosh. Yes. We do that all the time. In fact, that's a conversation my husband and I have all the time is how we lay there in bed at night staring at the ceiling reliving our days. Just what for? There's nothing you could do to change it. It's
Can't.
just
Yep.
playing it over. Oh, I wish I had said this. Oh, I wish I had done that. I wonder if they thought this. And for what? What does it
Yeah.
matter at this point?
I could probably like you know never run out of like things to say of like things we waste time on. Like almost everything we do is a waste of time except for what we do like in the moment and for what we do for our spiritual growth, you know, like very little of what we do really matters, you know? Like it's depressing on one end, but on the other end, it feels good. It's like a relief to know that okay, it's not that serious. Like
Right.
we can let go a little bit, right? Like
Yeah.
but yeah, you're right. Like there's times where like I would do that, replay like conversations I've had, like, oh yeah, I should have said that. Oh yeah, that really would have got him if I would have done that, you know,
Yep.
but
And then you
but
realize later on you're awake at 3 a.m. when you were supposed to be in bed by 10 and nothing got
right,
accomplished. Nothing.
right, exactly. The next day you're all tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
And
it's
then and
horrible.
have you ever had this happen? You took something out of context of something that someone said or you assumed that,
Right, right.
or they sent a text and you read the text differently than what they actually meant and you spent a whole night thinking about it, seething over it, letting it eat at you. And then the next day you say something to them and you realize, "Oh, that's not what they meant at all." A
Right,
complete
right,
24 hours wasted on mulling over something that was never there. And
right.
you feel like a fool afterwards, and they're like, oh, I'm never going to do that again. What do you do a
Well,
month later?
well, you'd be
Laying awake.
surprised. No, but you'd be surprised, right? Like a lot, like so, like I would say 90% of the fights that happen in this chat box here, where people like argue with each other, is a miscommunication, and
Yeah.
the only thing that prevents it from being able to be fixed right away is that people they can't just cut their losses and walk away. They got to get the
Yep.
last shot in, right? And
Yeah.
once you go too far, you can't just unravel it, right? Because then it's like, oh, you save up something hurtful that you didn't say to them because you're friends, right? But then like you wait for the right moment, and there's a fight, and you go, oh yeah, well your mama is this, right? And then next thing you know, next thing you know, it's like it's unfixable, right? And then I'm like, oh, why did you say that? Why did you say that? I could have
You
fixed
know,
it.
it just comes to show I used to be the person that always had to have the last word, but it comes to show that even having the last word doesn't mean you win. You in an argument like that, you just never win. Nobody wins
Nobody wins.
because both people are either hurt or guilty or nobody feels really good about it afterwards. So where's the win there?
I mean, I've even had people mad at somebody else, and the other person is completely unaware that they even have a problem.
That
I'm like,
too.
I'm like, I'm like, I think you're reading into this a little bit too much because that person has no awareness of what you think that they're doing, right?
That,
Like they
oh,
have.
I have a perfect story for that, but finish
Go
what you're saying.
ahead, go ahead. No, go ahead. I want to hear it.
I remember this time. It was a few years ago. My husband's parents were kind of with us for a few months, and his dad. I remember distinctly. He had his dad driving our truck so that he could get used to it and borrow the truck, and we were just humming along on the freeway. My husband's in the front seat with his dad. I'm in the back seat with his mother, my mother-in-law, and everybody we're just looking around, and it's a beautiful day, and we're driving up the freeway out of Reno, and we're heading back up to Cold Springs, and this truck passes by us, and this guy, no joke, passes by us with a purpose, with his hand and his middle finger out the window, and we saw him go by, and I don't think my husband or his father saw it, but his mother and I did, and I looked at her, and she looked at me, and we were like, wait a minute, what was that? We both kind of started laughing. And my husband was like, what are you talking about? And I said, did you guys see that guy drive by just flipping us off? And we were like, well, maybe we had upset him somehow. We had no idea. We had no idea
Right,
why he was so mad at us, but apparently we did him wrong somewhere.
right.
I to this day would never, you never stop and ask people, but it was one of those cases where I started thinking back, like, did maybe my father-in-law cut him off, or did maybe he was going too slow, but we'll
You're
never
gonna rack
know.
your brain. You're gonna rack your brain
Yeah,
for now until the end of time, right? And never know
that
what
or
you
this
did to
guy
that.
spent 20 minutes on the freeway going out of his mind, and we had no idea. Which either way is kind of funny, but you know,
It
the
is. It's not. It's absolutely. Well, see, and this is what'll get me sometimes is that like one person will be like super smart, right, and like be like could think of like devious things or whatever, and then the other person will be like super simple and doesn't think like that, right? And
right.
the one person that can think that way puts it on the other person that they're doing it, you know.
Yes.
And it's like,
That
no,
is a
you're
that
feeling
is a
guilty about,
manipulative
yeah,
relationship, and I've seen it happen before many times.
projection. Yep. But it's like
Yeah.
they're like one is projecting on the other what they would do in that scenario,
Yes.
and
And
it's like
it
that person has
borderlines
no
abuse,
idea.
doesn't it? I mean, if people do that to other people.
Yeah, that's how I learn about like where if someone's really like doing evil stuff, right? That's how I learn the most about them is whatever they're blaming the people for
Mhm.
is they willy nilly do it, right? But what they don't understand is that they're saying what they are doing to other people, right? Like they're saying everything that they're doing, right?
Yeah.
But like they're putting it on other people, and it's like, wow, everything, because like what'll happen is like, oh yeah, wait, you're saying these three things and you do those things, and then you're saying this thing and you do that too, and then like these three things that I don't know if you do, I'm gonna assume that you just do, right? Because
Right?
it matches up with all this stuff, right? And you learn so much about someone that keeps doing that, and they can't help themselves. They're always
That's
throwing it out there, new ideas about what they think you're doing to them.
Yes, and it's such a difficult relationship when you know somebody like that, because you don't want to offend them by pointing this out so blatantly, but they need to they need to realize what they're doing. And a lot of times people just have convinced themselves that they're so right that that I think that's the thing about being a Christian that I noticed is a big difference for me is I always thought I was doing the right thing, even when I was doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And I justified it in my own ways until, when I accepted Jesus, you have to humble yourself enough to say, yeah, that was wrong. I really shouldn't do that. Or admit when you make a mistake.
Yeah.
And people that have a lot of pride have a really hard time doing that.
That's one of the things that I think people have the hardest time doing is admitting that they're a sinner, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
a lot of people are like, "Well, I lead a good life. If he doesn't like it, then screw him." You know, like that's I've had people
Yeah.
say that to me. You know, and I'm like, "Wow, is all that because you can't admit that maybe that you've done things that are not right or not good." You know,
They
like
have a mentality like, I didn't ask you to be in my life.
right.
Yeah.
Here we go. Here we go again. Says someone can look at you like they want to kill you, but not be looking at you at all. Not be looking at you at all.
It's just
It's
what they
just
are thinking. Yeah.
right. Yeah, and you're like you're putting on them what you think that they're thinking, right? When they have
Yes.
probably no idea, right? Like a lot of times people will do that, you know? Or
That's
did anyone hear about, I guess there's a preacher in Chicago who went on the top of a roof building for 100 days that
true.
was infested with drugs and prostitution, raised money, had it torn down. Oh, that's pretty nice. Like there
Oh,
was
wow.
a building that was a nuisance and he raised money to have it torn down. I
And
guess
building a new.
well, that's the only way to get things done in like a community, right? Like, you know, there's all these rundown buildings and stuff, like especially if you live in a big city, right? Like there's a lot of squat places where people squat and all that kind of stuff.
Yes. They're all
And
over in Reno too.
hmm
We
and
call we
it's
call them transients.
right, right. Yeah, that's a good way
Yeah.
of saying it, right?
Yep.
You know, and this is what I say, right? I've done a lot of I've done a lot of talking to the homeless. Like that's probably the area of people that I've done probably the most work in, you know. But like most of the time, right? And I hate to say it like this because it's still it's still an illness and it's still sad, right? It's not entirely like somebody's fault, right? But like a lot of times there's an addiction situation or a mental health situation that
Absolutely.
that they
Yeah.
can't ask for help, right? They need to ask for help, and if they don't ask for help, no one will help them. And some people are just at that borderline where they're unable to ask for help, and no one will help them if they don't ask. And so
Yeah.
they're stuck. They're stuck. And so once in a while you run into that, and it's very heartbreaking
Yeah. Oh
because
my,
we.
Mr. Vader Jones. Hi, Vader Jones. I'm
Oh
pulling a
yeah,
Steven. I said hi to somebody in chat. I just looked up and saw
no,
her,
that's good.
her
That's
comment.
good. Well, I mean, I think it's important, right? Like I always whenever I was in chat groups when I first started to like really go to like live chat groups, you know, here and there, mostly it was the flat earth ones. But
Yeah.
anytime someone said hi to me, I always liked that, you know, like
Well,
to be
yeah.
recognized, you know, and so I'm like, I'm gonna say hi to everybody, you know.
Well, it's like
And
I mentioned yesterday about the inclusion. The inclusion is part of being
mhm.
that family.
Yeah, and I want people to know how I feel when they're here, you know? Like if
Right.
I feel happy that you're here, I want you to know that. And if like I haven't seen you in a few days and I leave a message over like on your channel or like on an email or something like, "Hey, I haven't seen you in a while," and you know, I just want to let you know that you're missed when you're not here, you know? Like
Yes,
not in
exactly.
any kind of pressure type of a way, but just like, hey, like we notice when you're not around, like you add value to the group, you know.
Well, sometimes it's a good thing to let somebody know that they are on your mind. You're not expecting them to have a full conversation with them. You're not expecting them to check in with you all the time, but hey, I you've been on my mind. just want you to know I'm thinking about you. And that makes people understand that, they mean something. And
Yeah.
I think that's what's important to being a Christian, that we're not only by ourselves in this world. We've got brothers
Right.
and sisters that think about us.
I think we crave a fellowship just because of how kind of ostracized we are. It seems weird though. Like why would we be singled out, right, for just believing what's true? You know, like like if something else was true, I would believe that. You know, like
Right.
it's not like I'm like in any way saying that like what I think is better than what anyone else is thinking. I'm just like there comes to a point where you could either accept what's really happening or you don't, you know?
Yeah.
And I would expect truthers of all people to understand that, right? You know what I mean?
I'm gonna use you as an example. I'm not gonna say
Yeah,
okay. Is that okay?
please
Okay.
do.
I'm gonna tell my husband. My husband's a quiet person,
Mm-hmm.
and he likes to just get up in the morning, go to work, clock in. He doesn't like, you know, what do you call it? Gossiping and talking and wasting time while he's being paid to work. He just
Yeah.
minds his own business. It's not that he doesn't want to be friendly. It's just that he's busy, he's quiet, and then he just wants to clock out, come home, and live in peace. And
Right, right.
when
Yep.
you're at a job and the groups of people have those cliques, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they start talking about that one guy, he's quiet, he must be stuck up, he must be I was going to say a bad word, but he must be a hole, or
Yeah.
they won't, and then they almost seem like they set out to target that person,
Yeah.
like,
They try to prove it, you know?
yeah. And you just kind of, people don't understand that, you got to walk in someone else's shoes, or at least, why is it so important that they fit in with you? Maybe they just want to be left alone. That's fine. Say hello, be courteous, and then that's very difficult for him a lot of times, because he's not trying to fit in, but it would be nice to just come to work and good morning, so and so, good morning, and then go to work. But it doesn't
Yeah.
always happen that way for him. And it's so frustrating, because
Yeah.
then he gets the questions like, oh, you don't like us? So what is, it just things.
Yeah.
And how do you
Well, but,
how do you deal with that when you're an introvert, or
but,
when you just want to
but
be left alone?
what's difficult is, right, there's the way that things should be, right? And would be better, right, if everyone did what we should be doing. But that's the front of like what people want you to see, right? But the way things really work is that you let's say you're a genius and you're going to come up with the best idea and the best plan and it's going to save the day, right? But they might not go with your plan. They might go with someone else's plan because they're somebody's cousin, or they're hot, or they're
Yeah.
whatever reason, right? Because the
Yeah.
world is messed up, right? And so that's the best way I can put it, is that like, yes, there's the way it should be, right? Which makes so much sense, right? And it's frustrating that it's not like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if it helps your husband, think about this, right? The world got to a point where people had evil in their hearts continually, and God had to flood everyone out.
Did you hear what he said?
That's how bad people got.
Yeah.
And
No,
so we're reaching that level of evil in this world, you know?
yeah. We're nodding. We're both nodding. It's the sad truth, but at the same time, it's kind of like
So
we
frustrating.
yeah, we try to find ways around it. And, sometimes the best way around it is to come home, leave it outside, and
Yeah.
don't deal with it.
We're, we're outnumbered. We are
Right.
outnumbered hugely. And like, it shouldn't be like, okay, so like we're Christian people, we accept the truth, we know who's in charge of our lives, we know where we're going, right? We shouldn't be outnumbered 99-1.
Oh, I know,
But that's what it's like, you know?
but that's
And it's depressing. I get it, you know?
well, and that's part of the war, if that makes sense.
Mental
Is
war.
Yep, we were not meant to have it easy, and we knew that, especially when you talk to people that say that once they accepted Jesus, it's not like everything became hunky dory and flowers bloomed and birds sang. People turned on us, family members turn on us. It will happen, and we will always be outnumbered. And that's why one of the things I was so thankful for, finding you, finding Faith, and finding people. Oh, Uncool Paranoia, that was a fun live stream. But
Yeah.
finding other Christians and rallying together is
Yeah.
is the best way to have strength in numbers. And
I think so. Yeah, you're
as
right.
iron sharpens iron, we've got to. So that's
Well,
why
this is what
it's so important to stay in touch.
well, this is what I really wanted to like achieve. Like, yes, I wanted to have a spot where like new sheep could come and just kind of fit in and be part of the group, and
Yep.
make their decision with God about their salvation, work that out, right?
Yeah.
And then also like have a place to plug back in and like sort of like unwind or forget, because the world is off the hook out there, right? Come here and just reset their mind, and then like with each other in the group, like subscribe to each other and form like a web ring to where we can go from one stream to the next if we wanted to, and stay just within the group if we just felt like we needed support, just stay
Yeah.
in the group all day, and
I
have
love
one
that.
person. Yeah, right. And I think that we can do it. One person give a class on this, one person have a stream about that, one person do headlines, one person we all do different things, right? And we're a
And when we
body,
have
right?
a new YouTuber that comes along, we try to promote them and lift them
Yeah,
up. And yes,
that's right. That's right. That's
Rob
right.
Rob said on the chat, Rob, I love you,
Yeah,
Rob. He said, I
yeah,
totally feel under attack by this world the past 2 years as I come closer to God. It's so obvious the two are connected. Rob, my
yeah.
husband's not very easily impressed, but I think he's impressed by your comment because he's very much nodding and pointing at your comment. And thank you for saying that, because it's hard when you feel like you're the only one that feels that way.
That's
And
right.
we're not.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So I love that. I love I think at first, the first few years when I accepted, my biggest problem was, am I alone in this? Am I the only one? And I thought I was the only person that accepted Jesus, then left a church on bad terms. And I refused to be angry at God over it because I knew it wasn't him, it was the people.
Yeah,
And for the longest time I was like, I must be a freak. I've never met anybody else that felt this way like me.
right,
And
right.
eventually just connecting and talking to people like you and Faith and Samira is her name.
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I
yeah.
I feel like,
Samira,
yeah,
not Samira.
Samira. I feel
Okay.
empowered, and that's the thing that's wonderful about connecting with all you guys, is we can empower each other by making
Yeah,
sure that one person doesn't feel like there's something wrong with them or something, they have
exactly.
any kind of shortcoming. There's nothing wrong with people. We're just all different. That's
That's
all.
it. That's it. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I mean, I've even had people come to me and say, like, because I talk about all the truth topics, right? I don't gatekeep for any of them. I don't just say, okay, well, I'm a flat earth channel, I don't talk about the other ones, right? Or muddy the water, whatever. I
Right.
open it up and it goes all the way to Jesus. I mean, that's the ultimate truth. He equates himself to being the truth, right? That's the prize for all this truther stuff, right? And so I've had people tell me that this was the only channel like that. And I had to think about that. I'm like, no, there's got to be like hundreds of these channels just kind of everywhere in pockets, right? But there's
Yeah.
not. There really isn't. Like this is it. Like and it's shocking to me. Like I'm like this. It can't be just us, right? Like,
Yeah,
but
there's so many people in this world. We can't be the only ones.
but it seems like it, huh?
It does. It does.
What
And
are we gonna
the thing the
do?
devil wants us to do is get discouraged, because then he wins. And there's nothing the devil would love to do more than to get back at God, because God won the battle and cast him out of heaven, than
Yeah,
to get his children and
yeah,
break our wills and break our faith. And when we start to feel like that, you have to remember that's somebody working on your mind there. And you know who he is, and he wants you to give up. Don't do it.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. Absolutely. Well, it's time to round
Woo!
out. It's time to hit the old dusty trail.
It's so funny because since you said that the last time, I was like watching the clock this whole time, like, oh my gosh, he's not kidding. The time is just going by fast. But
It does. It goes by very fast.
but I appreciate you having me on, Stephen. And this
Yeah,
time this is
sure.
the first time my husband got to sit with me while I'm on your show, and
It's outstanding.
and
You do a
he's
great
he's
job.
very impressed by you. He's
Oh,
very
thanks.
impressed by everybody that's on here, and how much you guys are so genuine.
That
And
makes me feel happy.
yeah,
That was
we're
nice.
just glad to have you in our life, even if it's only on this little computer for now. But
Yeah.
but you're a blessing. So
Thank you so
thank
much.
you.
You too as well. I feel the same way about you guys as well. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Well, God bless you. I love you guys. Hey, Arwen, what's going on? There's Arwen's there. How you guys doing? Um, praise Jesus for his sacrifice and his grace, and all glory to God. And I just want to say, pray for the children, and I will see you guys tomorrow at 7 a.m. See you
Amen.
later.